What's going on, Ambitious Vet? Welcome to another episode of the Ambitious Vet Show. I'm your host, Chris Hoffman, Marine Corps veteran, an award-winning entrepreneur who realized that immediate transition education expires when you desire more than just your basic needs being met. What do I mean by basic needs? I mean career readiness, resume writing, interview prep, job fairs, getting healthcare, a basic understanding of leveraging your benefits. What happens after that? If you've been out for a number of years in the military, you know that there is another challenge, a deeper challenge that you have to partake after getting those basic needs being met. And that's why this show exists. This show is designed to dive into the trenches with today's top subject matter experts, share inspiring transition stories, and provide masterclasses to equip you with the realistic perspective on what it takes to win in the trenches of everyday life post-military. Hey, Ambitious Vet. I hope you've been enjoying this podcast over the past few years. The next step is very simple. If you're liking the content that you consume on these episodes, go visit ambitiousvetnetwork.com and go ahead and subscribe to our bi-weekly newsletter. After you do that, you are going to receive your very own Ambitious Vet goal setting framework. One of the biggest things that I think a lot of us veterans deal with when we get out post-military is how do we set goals based on our own mission and our own skill gaps, right? And also, what are some fire team members that we need to develop to build accountability around, and also unpackaging the goals even to different tactics. This framework does a great job as far as drawing clear parallels from your military experience all the way to to your civilian life on how to goal set and get shit done and building teams along the way. That's the next step. Then you get a bi-weekly newsletter from us, which entails recent podcast episode releases such as this one and many others. You're also going to have updates, company updates, other partner resources that are promoting stuff with huge discounts, only exclusive within our newsletter. Not to mention, at the very end of it, we always have opportunities, upcoming events, veteran affair news, cool, humorous blogs to consume to make sure that you're fueling your post-military ambition. So again, Ambitious Vet, next steps, go subscribe to our newsletter at ambitiousvetnetwork.com, and I hope to see you on our email list. Take care.
It's time to get into the trenches, dig into your purpose, and fire up your life's fulfillment. The Ambitious Vet Podcast starts now.
What's going on, Ambitious Vet? We are right back inside the trenches this week with Brian Slade. Brian is has held command positions in the Army and the Air Force and received the Distinguished Flying Cross, Bronze Star, and 14 combat air medals. He attended Utah State, where he earned a BA and was commissioned as an Army Aviation Second Lieutenant. He's also earned an MA in Aviation Instruction. Brian currently serves as a Lieutenant Colonel for Air Force Combat Search and Rescue. And he's also written a badass brand new book called Cleared Hot: Lessons Learned About Life, Love, and Leadership While Flying the Apache Gunship in Afghanistan, and why I believe a prepared mind can prevent PTSD. He's had countless blurbs, quotes, and reviews and testimonies around how impactful this book was. One is it takes a reader through an extraordinary journey into the cockpit of an Apache attack helicopter, engaging in ferocious combat in the most challenging environment imaginable. And also, General Petraeus actually quoted and wrote a blurb on this saying, it is a truly great book. I'm excited to go ahead and welcome Brian. Brian, you there?
Yes, thanks for that intro, Chris, especially for the badass part.
Come on, man. I mean, I was a motor T operator in the Marine Corps, man, so I can only imagine what it was like for someone like yourself going through what you went through as an Apache helicopter. Everything you did in that role, man. So I would just encourage you to fill the gaps inside the introduction, man, and let us know a little bit more about who you are as a person on a daily basis today.
Yeah, no, and we got an opportunity to work a lot with Marines in all capacities, and I have the utmost respect, obviously, because you guys are down in the dirt doing stuff that I don't know if I'm willing to do. But that's also what gave me the motivation to be supportive overhead and to engage with lethal force, because it was worth it for the guys that were defending down there that are doing stuff that most of us just aren't willing to do. So yeah, no, I think you pretty much nailed it. I was in the Army for 12 years, and then I transitioned over to the Air Force to try to save a marriage, and all because the Army does really long deployments, the Air Force does shorter deployments. Jumped right into combat search and rescue in their heightened career, and we were doing 3 months out, 3 months back, 3 months out, 3 months back. So I don't know that it actually worked as far as that intent goes, but it really gave me an opportunity to see, combat from a couple different perspectives. One causing death and destruction, and on the hope, for the bad guys, and then on the other, picking up our guys and bringing them back to safety, right? And so it really kind of gave me a full circle. Part of it was a little bit more impactful because anytime you're dealing death, right? Anytime you're dealing death, there's going to be collateral damage, especially when people fight with their families and they fight where they live and they fight and that kind of thing. And so I knew that was part of it as the Apache. And then I roll in as an HH-60 combat search and rescue driver, and we land and we pick up kids with shrapnel from Apaches. Pick up kids whose arms are blown off because of forces. And that is the ugliness of war. That is the stuff that we have to combat mentally. And that really completed that picture for me. And it was impactful. It was like, this was me causing this a couple years ago, and it's just part of what we have to deal with. And that's what those type of scenarios and the impact that they had on my brothers in arms, some not so good, like devastating impacts. And the fact that I came out of it, I feel like a better, stronger person because of those experiences is really what drove me to write the book.
Yeah. Wow. And would you say that, with writing this book, has it been like therapeutical for yourself as far as reliving those things and kind of writing those things and all that good stuff? Has it been like a good experience for you doing that?
That wasn't the intent, but it was an unintended consequence. One of the, I worked with some mental health professionals to really kind of distill some lessons from my experience that could be taught to create, resiliency in others, and that could be taught to prepare your mind for, traumatic events or repair as the case may be. And it turns out the same principles work both ways. But one of those principles was to share your story, to talk through it. And what better way to talk through it than interviewing all the guys that I did it with and putting it on paper, right? So it was cathartic in a way, and that wasn't my intended consequence, but it absolutely was helpful.
Kind of gave everyone an outlet, right? So, I met you at the Military Infantry Conference, man. It was pretty awesome. Everyone was like, "You got to know Brian Slade." You just read a magnificent book and all that, and just like we sat there and we dove in pretty deep for about 10 minutes, man, as much as we could within 10 minutes. And then we jumped on a Zoom, I think, a few weeks back, and Ambitious Vet, just his idea behind going through what he went through, having, getting ahead of being trampled by trauma, this positive psychology, this strength-based way of thinking on stacking on top of your experiences and preparing your mind versus repairing it afterwards, is an incredible message for all of us, especially for someone like Brian, or if you're listening to this that has gone through combat and experienced combat, for you to kind of listen up on this one principle that I would love for him to unpackage, which is just one of many inside of his book. So make sure you go pick it up. It's called chair flying. Brian, man, take it from here. What is chair flying?
It is a practice I learned from Harry Potter.
Completely kidding, baby.
Yeah, completely kidding. Like, it sounds like it, right? Chair flying, whatever. But chair flying is actually a principle that's taught to most aviators. And when you're learning how to fly, anything, there's a lot of things going on that you got to be and stay on top of. And to learn it in an aircraft that's flying, it becomes almost a safety issue because you're trying to do all this stuff and you're in the air, so you can crash. So they have you do this practice called chair flying, where you basically walk through the whole scenario on the ground in a 1G environment. Obviously, we have simulators as well, but you can only get, you only have so many hours that you can be in the simulator. So this is something that you can do in a 1G environment, your kitchen or wherever, and literally sit in a chair and you start to go through scenarios. Now, that is something I did in flight school. When I was in flight school, I had some real world emergencies that really kind of drove that point home, is like, I want to bring this to a new level, the chair flying thing. I'm not just going to sit there and walk through these scenarios. I'm really going to try to fertilize my mind, if you will, to the garden to plant some of this stuff in there. And so I kind of added my own little flavor to it. And so my chair flying is meditation, visualization, and role plays love child is what it is. It's all those things blended together so that you get the most bang for your buck in this exercise. I usually will share a story from the book, lots of different ones, but I'll usually share one to try to drive this impact home. There was an engagement where we were developing the situation, which means we're working with ground guys and trying to figure out exactly where the enemy's at. And we haven't yet engaged the enemy. We just know they're there. We can hear them. They got an acoustic thing that kind of gets directional. And finally, they've given us an azimuth where we are cleared hot, right? And I'm going to take a pause right there. Cleared hot, by the way, is a directive. Most of you guys are going to know this, right? That means you've met all the criteria to engage with lethal force. I picked that as the name of my book because I want people to be cleared hot on their life, right? Meet all the criteria that necessary to move forth with purpose, right? And so there is a little meaning, secondary meaning with that phraseology. But anyway, they had cleared us hot on this azimuth, and we're rolling in. And right as we roll in, I'm in a bank, I'm in the middle of a bank, and simultaneously, I hear my co-pilot start screaming, telling me that he's shot in the leg. I lose an engine, and my flight controls are gone.
Minimal, over.
Rotor RPM high.
You all right? I'm shot.
Rotor
I'm shot.
RPM low.
Okay? I'm shot.
Rotor RPM
Shot in the
low.
leg. Hey, oh,
Rotor
Jesus Christ.
RPM low.
Shot in the leg. I'm headed in. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm in box. Oh, Jesus Christ.
1-4-0-21.
Okay? Oh, God, yeah. Okay, hey, pressure on your blood.
Yeah, Aero 2-3, front seater just around in the leg. We're heading to
I'm going to try.
Roger, copy, Aero 2-3, front seater, round to the leg. You're moving to escort him to Bastion for...
Oh, Jesus, my leg is so fucked up, dude. All right, dude, put pressure on it. I can't, I don't know where it went in.
Which means we're falling because we don't have enough power, because there's two engines, but it's not enough power to fly the power setting I had in that bank. He's screaming, and I need to move the flight controls, but they're jammed. Unbeknownst to me at the time, the reason they're jammed is his leg was shattered, his femur, and it had been wrapped around the cyclic, which is the control that's in between the legs. And so Boeing has constructed the Apache such that you can have a backup flight control system, but you have to break the mechanical linkage to do it, right? So you have to slam it through, break the mechanical linkage, and now we're in a fly-by-wire, which is a lot sloppier flying, but it's a backup flying system. Backup control system, which is called BUX, right? So Boeing advertises that it takes 1 second for that to take effect. And then when I remember learning that little minutia, and didn't really understand why until this instant, because just because of the profile that we were in the aircraft, had I slammed over and it taken immediate effect, I would have snap rolled the helicopter and landed upside down right in front of the Taliban. You did it, right?
Wow.
So I remember when I slammed that thing over, my co-pilot's screaming, I can't deal with that right now, right? I gotta fly first. Aviate, navigate, communicate. That's kind of the order.
Framework, yeah.
I gotta aviate first. So I slammed that thing over, and I remember thinking, please work as advertised. Because if it doesn't, we're upside down and this is all for naught. And it did. I centered it back up and came at it. I dropped the collective in my left hand, which is what makes it go up and down. Counterintuitively, if you're losing rotor speed because you have too much power applied, you have to reduce what makes you go up and down. So increase your descent. So it's kind of it's against what your body wants to do, right? And gain more rotor speed and fly out of that. So that's what I did. Okay. So all those things happened, and then I started working with my co-pilot, figure out where his wound is, press his wound, fly away, single engine flight for about 30 minutes, got him secured, and we had to roll that thing on with the backup control system, which was all stuff that had never been done before. So we were like, hopefully this works. And now it's been done, so we know that it does work. Now,
Holy shit.
all that to be said, did I accomplish all that stuff because I'm a superhuman, or did I accomplish all that stuff because I had already been there in my practice of care? Like, and the answer is right. I'm not a superhuman at all. Anybody can do this, but I'd had a year of going through emergency procedures, and to set the stage, I would do that whole chair fly scenario. So how does that look in our lives? Well, I'll get to that in a second, but here's how we set up. I would do the meditation piece every night before I go to bed. Now, for me, that was breathing techniques, right? Everybody's meditation is a little bit different, but get your mind right where you understand that you're in control of what's about to happen in the scenario you're about to build. Because we don't want to build anxiety. We want to build strength. And so for me, it's breathing techniques. Get it there, and then I go into visualization. And I'll pick an emergency procedure. Let's say it's getting an engine shot out. We're engaging, and I picture everything there, like what the tree line looks like, who I'm talking to, all these things, how I'm talking. What does my voice sound like? And then we lose an engine. What am I going to see in the cockpit? What am I going to do with my hands? What am I going to say with my voice? What's my presence of mind going to be? How am I going to get control? And usually it's just as simple as, when this happens, I'm going, that was my thing. Reset real quick, and then calmly talk, right? Calmly talk what's happening, what I see. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to that video, but if you did, then you know that I was speaking calmly through the whole thing, right? And that, once again, that was because that had been chair for me. My heart was going, a million beats.
Yeah. Yes, you
But
were
I'd
resetting
already-
yourself minute by minute then,
Yes.
as this whole thing was happening. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Constantly, boom. So what am I going to do? Physically, I'm literally moving my hands how I'm going to do it, because I'm telling you, that's counterintuitive. You want to yank up on that left hand when you're falling. That is a counterintuitive movement to slam it down. So that was one that I had done hundreds, if not thousands of times before it actually happened in chair flying. So I knew what to do. Like, I knew it. I didn't have to think about it. I reacted to it, right? And then, you go through contingencies. So the way you work through that visualization, we have lots of complicated scenarios in our lives. And let's just say, it's a conversation with your significant other, right? We know that those always go very smoothly. There's never any hiccups. There's never any bumps, right? We always react perfectly.
If only we had the script, man, right?
Yes, right. And so that's not true, obviously, but we do have a general idea of what our partner is like and how they might react and all those kind of things. And we also have a pretty good idea of what we will do, right? And so when we go and we start chair flying this scenario, we want this conversation to go as well as possible. So you work to a point that I call a choke point, right? Where you don't know exactly how you're going to react, or that your typical reaction might not be correct, right? And you get through that, and you do it your correct reaction. You get to where it's smooth through that point, and then you start over, and you go to the next choke point. And you figure out what that's going to be. And then you start over, and you go to the next choke point. Until you've worked all the way through this scenario, and it's smooth from start to finish. It's smooth. Then you got to start throwing in some contingencies. Well, I want her to react this way, right? But what if she throws something at me? Or whatever the case may be, how am I going to react in the best way possible? So you go through all of those. So those decisions are all made ahead of time. So you're not making them in the moment, because in the moment we're emotional creatures and we make poor decisions. But if we've walked through it multiple times, it's just a reactionary thing. We hear this all the time with professional athletes. Oh, the game slowed down for him, right? The game didn't slow down for him. He's just run through it so many times. He's reacting. He's not thinking, right? He knows where the ball's going to go before it even goes there. He can sense.
I see that. Yep.
Yeah. So that's the visualization piece. Now the role play is actually physical. My son says this to me all the time. Dad, you're talking to yourself. Yeah, I'm just. I'm actually having the conversation. I'm actually saying it how I'm going to say it. I'm actually taking that breath to calm down, right? And I'm working through that. A lot of people will say, well, I suffer with anxiety. So if I start walking through this, it's going to make me, it's going to make me build up. That's why the meditation piece is there. So when you do that meditation piece and you start walking down the visualization, if it starts to build your anxiety, you go right back to the meditation piece. You are in control of this box that you're in. You are in control. And then you start back in, and your goal is to get further than you did last time. And then you go back to the meditation piece if you need to. Eventually, you're going to train your mind that you can get through this whole thing from start to finish. And then you're going to be prepared for when the actual event happens. So end of the day, that craziness that happened right there, we're alive, right? Not because of any superhuman abilities, but because of preparation, because of chair flying, which is a technique that you can use with conversations with your boss, you can use with situations that you struggle with, you can use with anxieties that you already have. Some people are afraid of driving, let's just say, use that as an example. So you go do the chair flying, maybe you just sit in the car. You sit in the car, you do your meditation there, you control it. Car's not going anywhere, you're sitting there. And then you take it in your head, not the actual car, you just start going through, I'm going to put the key in, I'm going to turn that, I'm going to do that. I'm using a really rudimentary example, but this is applicable all the way through our life. What I didn't realize by doing the chair flying was I was also doing a thing called stress inoculation, right? I was doing it to prepare myself for emergencies physically, but I didn't realize I was also strengthening my mind for trauma. Stress inoculation is not unlike a medical inoculation where you give yourself a weakened dose of a virus, and then when the real virus comes knocking, you can beat your chest and say, go away, I'm ready, right? So same thing when you're doing this stress inoculation, I'm giving myself a weakened dose of trauma that I'm picturing. Before I blew anybody up, I'd pictured it multiple times, right? How am I going to feel when I turn somebody into bits? I mean, that's something that you hope you never have to ask yourself, but certain jobs, you have to ask yourself that, right? So you picture it, and yeah, of course, the picture is never exactly how the reality is, but I've already given myself that weakened dose. So when the real trauma comes knocking, I beat my chest and say, not today, buddy. It's not going to happen. You're going to maybe affect me with a little bit, like right now I get goosebumps thinking about it, but like, you're not going to do significant damage. And so instead of trauma, the trauma has power, right? Trauma has power. That's why we have depression. That's why we have suicide. If it didn't have power, it couldn't do those things. But like all power, if redirected, it can be instead of a millstone dragging you down, it can be a cornerstone for a foundation of a better version of you, right? Same weight, same strength, same power, just application is different, right? So that's why we say it all the time. So-and-so started here and really bad situation. And despite all odds became this guy. Nope. That's not true. Became this guy because of that. Because of all those difficulties. Because they had power and he used them as stepping stones instead of dragging him down. Right? Everything happens for us, not to us. And that's perspective shift, right? But that's why I say guys aren't broken. They aren't broken.
Yeah.
They just haven't figured out to use the tools and the perspective within them to use that power to their advantage instead of dragging them down.
Yeah, they don't have the tools, man. And it sounds like you've been able to leverage like what you've learned through flight school, through these traumatic experiences, and just through what I like to call playing God, right? Oh my God. Like what you were doing was pretty much playing God, and it has to be a lot of mental preparation for that. Is how you've been able to just repurpose everything and have it be, package it in a Barney-proof way for you to repurpose it for your everyday life post-military, right? How do you prepare yourself for, playing God and, like you said, just blowing people to bits? In my case, in Motor T, just like every single day as I was manning a 240 Bravo gun, am I willing, what am I willing to do? How far am I going to go today? You know what I mean? And, it takes something. And I just love how you attach it to marriage too, because that's like divorce is the number one risk factor for suicide, for veteran and military community as well, man. So just helping us catch each other more upstream, man, and resilience versus waiting till the divorce already happens. We're down and out. problems are just burying us. It's hard to catch us when we're downstream, man. So, I mean, just catching us upstream and, doing these techniques, as frequent as possible. And you said you do these, what, every morning, every night? How frequent do you do them, or do you just do them repeatedly?
So when I was deployed, it was very methodical. And like I said, my whole point was I was trying to survive things because I'd had my tail rotor shot, I'd had, stab shot, I'd had a lot of things happen. The generator got shot out, engine shot out, co-pilot shot, these things happen. And I'm just like, good, I got to be ready for this. And so it became an hour ritual every night at least. And it was kind of like my before bedtime, like, and people were like, you did that before you went to bed and then you went to sleep? And I was like, honestly, it just became, I knew that it was a preparatory thing. So it actually had a calming effect, even though I wasn't necessarily thinking about calm scenarios. But I would do it every day for about an hour. Now that I'm back home and in my day-to-day life, I do it as needed. Like I have a girlfriend. We had a conversation the other day that maybe wasn't as easy to have. It wasn't horrible, but it was like something that I knew could have some escalation. And so I took a drive and I just went through it, how I'm going to react, how I'm going to stay calm. And it worked out fine. The conversation was productive. It was constructive rather than destructive, de-escalative instead of escalative. I don't know if those are words, if I just made those up, but basically
it works, man. It works.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, so now I use it as needed, which guess what? It's needed almost every day for something.
Yeah,
right?
I feel that.
Like I said, my kids call me out all the time.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that because I'm going to take this on too, man. I love the drive going through this framework. I'm going to use this framework just for difficult conversations with my wife and family members and just friends as well, man, just to kind of get ahead of, me getting emotionally triggered, right? Because if I'm emotionally triggered off of something that my wife says, maybe I take it personal or whatever, man, I go through spiraling thoughts, emotions, and it might inspire, not inspire, but trigger anger or whatever, man. I got to get ahead of that, man. So whenever that familiar emotion comes up, I can just say, all right, man, remember my practice. This is what I'm hearing from what you're saying, man. And just all that good stuff, man. I just think this is a great technique for all the guys and gals that are trying to get ahead of, being called broken, right? Because we don't want to feel that damn, we don't want to feel that damn title anymore, man.
No.
That narrative that's thrown on us.
I'm tired of. I really, I don't like that it's a foregone conclusion that a man's going to come back as a shell of himself. I don't like that perspective. Now, I admit that it happens, and that's just because we often don't know how to use it. We often don't know how to digest what we've got in front of us or redirect that power. You just hit on it too. Like emotion is another one of those things that has power. It can get, where do you direct that power? The most beautiful thing about humans is we're emotional. The destructive thing about humans is that we're emotional, right? Like you gotta direct that power because it's powerful.
Yeah. And it's like crazy. And I know we've took a lot of your time, Brian. I appreciate you staying extra. But it's just like, yeah, man. And like, sometimes that can just completely, hijack you as well. It's because you get out of the military and you realize that like you do have emotions, right? And it's then learning how to process all these crazy emotions that come once you realize that like, okay, I don't got to numb myself to everything anymore. So going through that process, and I can just see this chair flying technique that is just one of the principles in this amazing book. Ambitious Vet, and I encourage you to go and definitely go check it out. I'll have the links in the show notes below. But just one of the techniques that you can leverage to kind of get ahead of and prevent yourself from being labeled as this broken, another crazy combat veteran that was exposed to trauma in combat. Last question I have for you, Brian, is what is some lasting advice that you have for veterans that are returning back to their normal lives? And then we'll give them a call to action to go find your book or your website, and then we'll kind of conclude the show.
I get asked this question in different forms often, and my answer isn't always the same, but I really feel like gratitude is so crucial. gratitude is so crucial to setting a fertile base for all these, like the principles, the 7 principles that I talk about in the book. Gratitude is foundation. Because if you think about this, if you think about what you're grateful for, and you start thinking about what you're grateful for, and then simultaneously try to think about what you hate, or simultaneously think about what you're stressed about, or simultaneously pick a negative emotion. You can't do it. One of them is going to win. One of them is going to win. You're either going to be grateful, which gives you a feeling of, power, or you're going to have the other side of it. So I guess there's one thing I would tell people to focus on is daily get in the habit of just pointing out things that you're grateful. And I had one guy say, yeah, even if it's something as simple as the sunrise, right? Be grateful for that. And I was like, yeah, you think about what you just said. What if the sun didn't rise? Is that simple?
Yeah. We don't think like that, too. No, it's like, oh shit.
It's not that simple, right? That's an amazing blessing that we just take for granted. And there's millions of them, right? So we have plenty to be grateful for, even in the midst of thinking that we don't. So I challenge people to start making that a habit, and then these other things will become easier to build upon that.
Yeah, no, Brian, I love that. And working an ambitious vet that's listening to this right now, go find more about you and go find Cleared Hot, your brand new book.
Yeah, so it's on Amazon. Cleared Hot by Brian Slade. I mean, it's the first one that comes up. There are a couple old books called Cleared Hot, but they're underneath it. I have a website, www.clearedhot.info. There's more information there as well as some videos and whatnot. We're still building that thing out as we go. It's kind of building a plane as you fly, if you will. But those are I'm on also all the socials. Brian Slade, and in Instagram. Well, I guess I'm not on TikTok. Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Ain't no one got time for TikTok, man. You guys did viral videos all the time. You got more to do than just that.
I just haven't delved into it because of all the conspiracy around it.
Yeah.
But I've been working on dance moves, so maybe.
There you go, man. Cleared Hot, the dance. It's gonna be an extension. I love it.
Get it in Fortnite.
Yeah, I love it. We look forward to that. Brian, man, I just want to say thank you, man. I want to thank you for coming on the show, sharing your story vulnerably. I know it's not easy to do this stuff. I know you've been doing it quite a while now since the book, but still, man, I don't take it for granted. I think stories like this are the most sacred thing for any veteran to share. So I just appreciate you sharing the story. And Ambitious Vet, make sure you go check out Cleared Hot, Lessons Learned About Life, Love, and Leadership While Flying the Apache Gunship in Afghanistan, and why I believe the prepared mind can prevent PTSD. Brian, thanks for joining the show, brother.
Thanks, Chris. Really enjoyed it.
The Ambitious Vet is available on all popular podcast platforms. Go to vettrainingcoaching.com to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow vets.
Hey, Ambitious Vet, hope you enjoyed this episode. Before you officially leave, make sure you go take 5 minutes. Go check out ambitiousvetnetwork.com and subscribe to our newsletter. There, you're going to be able to, in return of giving us your name, last name, and email, you're going to get your own PDF copy of our Ambitious Vet Goal Setting Framework just in time to hit the new year going in 2023. Today is November 30th of 2022. Just in time for you guys to leverage this framework as we go into a new year. Make sure to go subscribe there. You're going to be able to get a bi-weekly newsletter after you leverage that goal setting PDF. And, the newsletter just has incredible value adds to make sure we're fueling your ambition post-military, and also helps you get more connected deeper inside the platform and our network, right? So hope to see you inside the email list, Ambitious Vet. And until next time, hold the vision and trust the process. Take care.